doubt about it. I was scared. I was very scared.
I felt very frightened. I didn't want to die. There's so much in life to live for.
I could see us coming down, whether it was going to be breaking up in midair, whether we were going to slam into the side of the mountain or ditch in the sea, I'd no idea. But that we'd reached the end of the road, I'd no doubt at all.
I suppose I felt, why me? But then there were 300 other people with me, and it was just the odds and the luck of the draw. Down you were going. It could be walking in front of the bus, and you wouldn't actually know it was going to happen. Here you had 12 minutes to think about it.
British Airways Flight 009 left London for New Zealand on Wednesday the 23rd of June 1982. On board were 247 passengers and a crew of 16. "24 hours later, as night fell, the big jumbo was at 37,000 feet over Indonesia, heading for Perth in Western Australia.
Yeah, well, there's nothing to do till we get down to Topar.
With First Officer Roger Greaves in control of the aircraft, Captain Eric Moody left the flight deck to stretch his legs. So far, the flight had been perfectly routine.
The first indication I got that anything was wrong was that the stewardess upstairs called down to get me back on that I was back on the flight deck. And as I ran up the stairs, I could see black smoke billowing around the floor of the upstairs cabin.
And then we started to get a little bit of an acrid sort of smell, the sort of smell you associate with electrical problems. Very similar to being on the underground, the smell you get on the underground sometimes.
But when I got onto the flight deck, the other two were watching a marvellous display of St Elmo's fire outside, which is short lightning, tremendous. In fact, it was very attractive.
Very peculiar, this light though, isn't it?
Engine failure number 4.
Fire action number 4.
Fire
Number 4,
number
thrust
4.
lever closed. Number 4, start lever, check. Cut off.
The next thing was that number 4 engine failed. That was unusual. The Rolls-Royce engine's got a very good reputation. It doesn't normally fail, other than because of a problem, and it just surged and fell. Switch number 4, and there's no fire, so I'll do the electric check.
Right.
As the trays were being cleared away, I noticed a little bit of smoke coming down from up front. And I thought, well, everybody must be smoking up at the front. There must be a lot of smokers on this flight. And from there on, there was a lady somewhere behind who... there was a lot of noise going on, but she said, "My God, we're on fire."
And instinctively, I thought, well, I've got to calm her, and I mustn't show any emotion, and I've got to give her an answer which is justified. So I simply turned around and said, "Madam, for heaven's sake, it's just friction. There's nothing to worry at all."
I looked out towards the right, and there were flames coming out of the engines. And as soon as I saw the flames, I knew that obviously it was quite disastrous.
Checklist complete. We've lost number 2 engine. They're all gone.
Okay then, Barry, pull out that 4-engine failure checklist.
Right, the loss of all generators.
I've been on the aeroplane a long time, and you do, in fact, lose the odd engine. 2 engines, no, that's a bit rare, but 4, by golly, that never happened. And it's only ever happened before when it's been a finger trouble on the part of the crew. Well, I say only, that's in modern jets in airline service. It's been finger trouble. So you sit there thinking, what the hell have we done wrong? And you don't believe it, really.
And Rog, declare emergency, please. Jakarta, Speedbird 9. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Speedbird 9. Descending through flight levels 365. We've lost all 4 engines. We're 100 DME from Jakarta. Speedbird 9.
Multiple engine restart.
We've lost all 4 engines. Descending out of flight level 365.
The Mayday call was the first and hopefully the last one I'll ever have to make in my career. It didn't exactly go the way I expected it to. The use of the word Mayday internationally is something which should unquestionably inform people that you have a problem. And unfortunately, there seemed to become some confusion between us and the controller that we were talking to, because after putting out the Mayday call, which includes the word Mayday and the call sign and exactly where you are and what the problem is, the reply I got from the ground controller was, have you got a problem?
Jakarta Speedbird 9, I say again, we've lost all 4 engines. Lost all 4 engines presently out of 350.
I should ignore him, Roger, if you can't get through, mate. Ignore him. Come back in the loop with us. I've got a bit of descent. I'll turn it round, actually, Roger, to get off the airway.
Check start levers. All for arrival.
We're trying.
The next thing that happened was, perhaps for me personally, the most alarming of all. It was the movement, the motion of the aircraft, which seemed to go into a fairly steep descent, and then it started a kind of bucking action.
Actually, I was starting to panic now. And from there, my legs started to shake. And so, trying not to let anybody see that I was frightened, I put my hands on my knees to try and stop them shaking, and then went forward, because they were just uncontrollably shaking.
Engine stall conditions exist. Start levers to cut off.
Okay, they are.
The valves have run, EGT decreasing, start levers, auto idle.
By the time we got down to 28,000 feet, I'd used the time, or my spare mental capacity, because doing the drill didn't take all my thinking power, to work out where I was going to go and what I was going to do at what stage. Well, I was going to head back towards this high ground on the south of the island of Java, which was a safety height there, or the safe height I could come down to was round about 12,000 feet. I think the hills were about 10.5. So once I got down to 12,000 feet, to be safe then, I'd have to turn back out to sea, which would give me another 12,000 feet of glide if the engines hadn't started. So it was quite simple. There were cut-offs. I did this for so long, that for so long, and instead of time, it was height.
When I looked down the cabin and I could see certain people sobbing, other people were almost statue-like in their seats, very firm and stiff.
And then it was just total silence, apart from the wind that was rushing past the aircraft. No other sound at all. I think everybody was having their own inner thoughts and thinking of the situation.
Cabin pressure.
Put your oxygen on. At 26,000 feet, the cabin warning horn went off, which showed that the cabin had climbed up to 10,000 feet. And that was because the engines weren't pushing any air in, so obviously the pressurization was going to bleed off. And we went to put our oxygen masks on, so there was a break in the action of starting the engines, but I put mine on, Barry put his on, and they're cumbersome, horrible things. When Roger went to put his on, the first officer, he found that the hose and the bayonet that held the oxygen hose onto the front of the mask fell off and was in his lap.
Well, yes, that was a problem I could have done without, really.
Are you with me? Yes. Anybody with me? Without a bloody thing. Can you hear me, Barry? Yes, I'm with you. Can you hear me? Yeah, can you cancel that all on, mate? Yeah, I'm with you, but my mask's gone wrong.
We had our masks on, and at one stage, my mother's head slumped forward.
I soon came to and just thought, well, this is the end. This is the end of our lives.
And I remembered that in my handbag, I'd got a little 3-inch high little gollywog. It was a little travelling mascot, a fun gift that somebody had given me years ago. And I often carried him around just for jokes, because I'm not a superstitious person. It was just a fun thing. I took him out of my handbag, and I put his little head inside my oxygen mask. And I made him say something. I can never remember what it was, but it was a joy to me to see my mother smile, and I knew she was all right.
A girlfriend of mine, Sue Glennie, that day I had bought a shopping bag, which expanded, which is very good for stewardesses because we buy lots of trinkets around the world. And she had one of these bags, and I managed to find one exactly the same. And in the middle of the flight, she came up at its worst point almost, and everybody was on oxygen masks and everything at this stage, and said to me, "You'll never get a chance to use your new shopping bag." We all sort of sick joke, but she took it in all good faith, you know, and carried on.
Okay, I'm going to get Graham up here to see what he knows and see if we can brief him about a collapse that we have to ditch.
Okay.
I'm going to make a PA announcement to get him up, because I can't get through on the intercom system. So stand by. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain speaking. We've got a small problem in that all 4 engines have failed. We're doing our utmost to get them going. I hope you're not too distressed. Would the CSO come to the flight deck, please?
When I went up there, all hell was let loose. The engineer was trying to start the engines. I heard the first officer, Roger, calling Mayday, Mayday. And as I say, I'm not an aviator by any stretch. And I knew Mayday wasn't a good thing to say, and it wasn't really May anyway. It was in June. So the captain turned round, and I had the shock of my life because he had his full oxygen harness on. And it just looked like the Elephant Man. There's tubes coming out of every orifice. And he turned around and went, and I thought, goodness gracious, what did he say? So I stood there, which seemed like eternity. And I thought, well, he's not going to say anything else to me, so I'll just pretend I've heard something. I'll go downstairs, I'll tell the crew, and between coming up downstairs and reaching the bottom, I had to think of something to tell the crew positive. So 3 of them were at the bottom of the steps. Graham, what is it? What's happening? I said, I'll let you know directly. I've changed my trousers. And it gave me breathing space. It gave me breathing space to think. And I said, right, we're going back to Jakarta. Prepare for an emergency landing. Now, I wasn't sure whether it's going to be on the ground or on the water. They said, well, what kind of emergency landing? I said, an emergency landing on water, which is the worst you could expect. So you can, if you anticipate the worst, you're prepared for the worst.
Okay, I've tried 270 knots on the speed. I'll bring it back to 250 for you on my side. Okay, Barry?
Fine. About 13,000 feet, I'd run out of things to do. I'd thought it all out. I knew where I was going. I was flying the aeroplane at this stage. We were still trying to get the things going. And with nothing to do, the ditching bit came into my mind, and that made me very apprehensive.
I suppose at that stage I thought I was thinking in terms of ditching. Again, I mean, there was no thought about not actually getting away with it. It was just a case of, well, there's got to come a stage where we're committed to that rather than the thought of being able to put it back on an airfield somewhere.
You're supposed to look at the swells to see the primary and the secondary swell, and there's a big write-up in the book about landing down one, and you pick out a heading which gives you the best ditching heading, and it would have been extremely difficult at night to do that, let alone judge the height above the sea, because we usually land with wheels down. There's no way you'd land on the sea with wheels down, so there's a difference in your height perception. No, I think that would have been very, very difficult, and probably, yeah.
What?
Impossible.
So what would have happened?
Well, I think, I don't think we'd be here talking about it today.
I did think we would be coming down in the sea, and I didn't know what chances a plane had to land on the sea because of my first time flying, and I had no idea. But I thought we'd probably die.
I had gone through the aircraft several times and had to make the passengers talk to me, and it's very difficult when you take an oxygen mask off and say, are you all right? And they have to take theirs off and say, yes, I'm fine. So I had a system where I went through and said, are you okay? And in the end, I was walking through the aircraft so quickly, and they were going, I'm fine.
She's lovely. She's very good to me. Well, in fact, her coming and talking to me and being so kind to me. Well, when what happened and it went along so long, there's no way, no matter how scared I was, I had to behave as a gentleman because I couldn't have disgraced myself in front of her.
He had told me that it was his first flight. And as soon as I could, I went back to him. And he had his oxygen mask on, and I said, you know, everything's all right, it's under control, and we're going to be fine. And I don't want you to worry. And he was quite remarkable because his only reply to me was, don't worry about me. See to the women and children first.
There came a time when the uncertainties and the fear seemed to go. We passed through that into a state of total acceptance, resignation and acceptance that we were going to die.
Once you realised that you were going to die, you were just hoping that it would come quick rather than be a long time. And you were looking and hoping that there was a mountain somewhere that you would hit, and it'd be over very, very quickly.
I kept asking God that if I survived, I didn't want to be limbless, I didn't want to be a vegetable, that if I was going to survive, I'd prefer to survive reasonably intact, and if not, then I'd rather have a quick death.
Jakarta Speedbird 9, we're presently descending through 14,000.
Number 4 started. We're getting number 4 back.
Oh, are we?
Yeah, it's running up. Number 4's coming back.
Right, I'll let it stabilise, and we'll have a bit of power. I can probably kill some of the descent now.
We got number 4 started up. A minute and 20 seconds later, number 3 started. And although there was a bit of a roar with them, as they sometimes start up like that on the ground, they were quite quiet engines. They built up relatively slowly.
And 1 and 2 are coming back.
Oh, listen to that.
4 stabilising, 3 stabilising, 1 and 2 are accelerating. What a nice sound that is.
Oh, beautiful noise. I mean, the noise of the last 2 coming in together, which was the Rolls-Royce engine has a lovely sort of buzzing type noise, quite a deep buzz when it fires up initially, and the sound of these 2 coming in was absolute music.
Jakarta Speedbird 9, back in business. We've got all 4 engines going. We're levelling at 12,500 feet. Request climb.
The captain made a second announcement at that stage, and he told us that we had solved our problem and that we would be diverting to Jakarta, where we would be landing perhaps in about 15 minutes. I looked out of the window, and within seconds of his announcement, the number 2 engine, or more accurately, the area behind number 2 engine, which was visible to me, started glowing again.
Now, when you've had 4 engines going, no engines going, 4 engines going, you are reluctant to shut them down again, I tell you. But that thing was surging so badly that we had to shut down number 2 engine. So there we were back on 3 engines, and you begin to wonder, well, are they going to keep going till you get on the ground?
Gears down, full flat, clear the land. A bit low. It's a tush. 3,000 feet, no flags.
As we approached the airfield, having turned to lose the height, we were actually coming in from the north, which meant that the airfield was out on the right-hand side of the aeroplane, on my side. And everything looked perfectly normal looking out of the number 2 window. As we turned to intercept the localizer to line up with the centre line of the runway, I got the impression that we were flying into mist.
We could see nothing except, say, down an inch or 2 strip at the side. And even that was blasted or was misty. We had no idea what it was at the time. So I had to lean over or round the side and look in the final stages to see these red and white lights that tell us if we're on the glider. And they were all blurred, but, you know, we could manage to look round.
50 feet, 30 feet.
All 4, outboards on.
The aircraft came to a complete halt, and then a spontaneous burst of applause for the crew who'd brought us safely down. In some parts of the aircraft, hugging, crying, laughing and crying at the same time, shaking hands. With others, it was a stunned disbelief.
They'd locked up the duty-frees. The only one bottle we had was a single miniature vodka, which on landing we shared between the three of us and had it neat. Best piece of vodka I've tasted.
Can you see that your side?
Yeah, I got the edge
Okay
here.
then. I can't see a thing on here. If you can take it, you take it.
Yeah, got it.
Taxi it up
Once
the
we
end
got
there.
onto the taxiway and I asked to be towed in, we'd shut the engines down. I, in fact, got out of my seat, went downstairs and talked to the first-class passengers and told them roughly what had happened, or what we knew of what had happened. And I, in fact, sat on my hands on some equipment we've got in the middle of the first-class cabin. When I came to go back upstairs to, when they were going to tow us in, sit in my seat, I looked at my hands, they were absolutely black. And it was sort of a powder, dust. When I got upstairs, I said, look at my hands, chaps. And Barry said, do you know what? He said, I reckon we've been through a volcano. And I said, girl, up at 37,000 feet, enough dust to stop the engine. You know, get lost.
We subsequently discovered, of course, that the cause of this crisis was the erupting plume of volcanic ash from Mount Galunggung in West Java in Indonesia. The ash from Mount Galunggung had in fact risen to an incredible height of, well, the aircraft was flying at, I think from memory, about 7 miles high, 37,000 feet, and it had gone up beyond that height in such density that it had clogged all the engines in such a way, it was rather like throwing sand on a barbecue, and it had just stifled the fire in the engines and had put them out. It was as simple as that. We formed a club. We called it the Galunggung Gliding Club, named after the volcano which so nearly got us that day. And we have kept in touch ever since with reunions around the world, in Australia, in New Zealand, in Britain. And we have formed some very deep and fond friendships.
Do nothing for 2 weeks. Keep behind you. Keep behind you. Oh, absolutely. Got to keep practicing. I might get it right one of these days.
Ricardo, Speedbird 9. Affirmative, affirmative. We've lost all...
I'm a lot more relaxed about things than I ever used to be. I don't have problems anymore. I still have things that irritate me. So on that basis, yes, I guess it has changed me a bit.
It's made me more aware of flying. Before that, I used to enjoy turbulence. I used to enjoy flying. Now if I'm sleeping on an aircraft, I can wake up within seconds if there's a change in the engine noise. If someone strikes a match and I can smell sulphur, body instantly just wakes me up. So I'm not as relaxed in flying since.
Hello, how are you? And my mate Rog. How are you, mate?
I'm all right, how are
nice
you?
to see you.
Yeah, and you?
You're going to have... bloody hell. All right, I'll fly first thing on the... Perhaps that's the trouble. Perhaps
I don't think it's changed me one little bit. I mean, I need to fly, I need the money, I have to go to work, so I have a very practical and positive attitude. You forget the nasty bits.
With hindsight, this might seem strange to you, but I wouldn't have missed it for anything. We gained a sense of enrichment from the experience, an appreciation of life, which I think will never let me take it totally for granted again.
We're probably.
You think that will come one day?
7,000 feet up, all 4 engines cut out. With the plane plummeting towards the mountains, a flight engineer manages to get one restarted. Well, all this actually happened, and today, in Harrogate of all places, Barry Freeman from Pudsey was presented with a special award from the airline officers. He told Harry of the drama of trying to restart the 4 engines.
It was rather difficult. All the 4 engine failures that we've had, or that I know about, have been caused by some sort of mishandling or other. That was our first check. What have we done wrong? And we found that we hadn't done anything wrong. And not knowing what was the cause of the engine failure, we didn't know what the cure was. Had we mishandled the fuel system, for instance, that would have been able, we could have rectified it and got them started. But no, we didn't really know for absolute certainty that we were going to get the engine started again, because we didn't know at that time what had caused them to fail.
We always imagine, when we see these kind of things on the films and so forth, that the pilot is very calm and cool, collected. Was that really going on in your mind at the time?
Yes, we were all very calm.
I can't believe it.
It's true. We do practice the drills in the flight simulator quite regularly. The difference being that 20 minutes after the drills, you know that you're going to be sitting outside having a cup of coffee. We were very calm. There were 3 of us working quite hard. There was quite a lot of work to do, but there was no panic or suggestion of alarm at all. We just got on with the drill to the best of our ability.
What about the passengers at this time? I mean, there must have been panic to a certain extent.
No, from what I know, of course, we're sitting upstairs on the 747, but there was no panic. There was obviously some alarm and people were frightened, but there was no actual panic, and the cabin crew were very calm. I think they were a very calming influence on the passengers.
But how close were you to disaster, would you say?
Well, we got down to about 13,000 feet before we had all the engines running again, but the high ground in that area, the minimum flying altitude is 11,500 feet, so we were fairly close to the minimum altitude. But of course we didn't know it at the time. We were in a cloud of hot volcanic gas which was rising, and we didn't descend quite as quickly as we would have expected to normally. It was quite a gentle descent.
What was your feeling when the engines restarted?
We had Rolls-Royce engines on, and when they start up like a worn-out diesel truck. And it was really a lovely sound that night when those engines, the first number 4 engine started first, and it didn't stop our descent, but it levelled it off quite a bit, and we had more time then. And we had about a minute and a half just on number 4 engine. Then the other 3 started. And when we got the other 3 started, we climbed back a little bit, and then the sort of effects of the flashing lights started again. So we stopped the climb, and then number 2 engine failed again rather badly. So we shut it down, and we eventually landed at Jakarta on 3 engines.
Celebrations when you actually got the engine started again, or when you landed?
Oh, well, when we landed, we had a glass of soda water each. I think that was about all we could cope with at the time. We didn't know at that time, of course, what the cause was, so we were more interested in finding out what had happened and looking after the passengers, because it was an unscheduled landing. The British Airways station at Jakarta is quite a small one, and to suddenly land them with about 240 passengers was quite a big influx, so we had quite a lot of work to do looking after the passengers before we could get out to celebrating, as it were.
Wouldn't you prefer a 9-to-5 office job?
No, I don't think so, no. It's a lovely job that I've got, and every time I go to work it's completely different. Not that different, fortunately, but no, I don't think I would. I'm quite happy flying. It's a lovely...
Well, congratulations on this award. I know it means a lot to you.
Yes, it does. Frank Durkin was one of our prominent flight engineers, and it's a flight safety award awarded by the Flight Engineers International Association to commemorate Frank Durkin. He died a few years ago.
Fantastic.